Welcome to 247 Real Talk. I'm your host, Julian Perry. It's a pleasure to be here with you for another episode of the 247 Real Talk podcast. It is Wednesday, April 2nd at approximately 9:35 p.m. I'm back on schedule for Wednesday night recordings. Hope you had a great week since we last spoke. It's been up and down weather here on the East Coast, New York. We had one day, I think it was Saturday, it was almost 80 degrees during the day, and then about 3 p.m. onwards, the bottom fell out. We're dying for stability in the 60s and 70s, and we know it takes a while, but it's coming, and then we'll have those days where we'll talk about how hot it is in the studio. Hopefully at some point before the end of the year. I'm speaking to you from my new studio space that I'm building in the lower floor or the basement of my home. Went to see my knee surgeon today. The rebuilt knee is coming along nicely. The other knee is deteriorating rapidly. I had to get a cortisone shot in the knee, which I didn't realize for the knee is a pretty big needle. Needles don't bother me, but I was surprised as to how much cortisone and the size of the needle. And they're hoping that will help because they tried the gel before, the Euflexia gel, and that didn't work. And they also did a prescription for a brace to hold that knee together since I can't walk without it. I'm currently using a makeshift brace. And so they're going to try to get me one until the next surgery. So that's the update on my knees. We won't spend a lot of time on that. And this will not be a long episode. There's a lot going on in the news, a lot going on in our lives in the United States. And I'm just going to touch on a few things that I came across in the news as we continue to navigate this kind of territory that we thought was long gone with the civil rights movement, and something that's new to all of us, even though it exists in our history books that they're now trying to erase from history. So sit back, relax, and I'll be right back. All right, so I'm back, and I'm going to start off this podcast episode with a personal understanding of all the people that reached out to me. First of all, let me say a welcome to all my listeners, to all my subscribers. Got a few new ones recently, but not that many. Not sure, even though I collaborate offline with other podcasters, what my next step is to get the word out and to build the base that listens. I do have quite a few audio downloads, but the YouTube's subscribers or the YouTube subscribers is a slow climb now. Nevertheless, we're in this for the long run. We're in this for as long as we can do it. And so I continue to have these conversations with you. And I'm so appreciative of those of you who reach out to me and encourage me and have conversations with me. So thank you to the old, to the new, to continuous. Please like, share, subscribe. It means a whole lot to me, the channel, and it helps me get this message out further in a time that it's desperately needed. I'm going to start off this episode with Proverbs 3, verse 5 to 6. Trust in the Lord with all thy heart, and lean not into thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Trust in the Lord with all thy heart, and lean not into thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. That is a powerful verse at a time when it's desperately needed. We're looking around us and we're seeing things erasing us. It's almost like we're looking in the mirror to see what we've become, and we're watching our reflection fading in the mirror, like we exist less and less, or we matter less and less in this society. if you pay attention to what's going on, you have to get a sense that the powers that be have an effort or making a massive effort to erase things back to the way they were. They have concluded that the pre-civil rights environment, society, where everything about them was positive and everything negative about us was unlisted, blacklisted, erased, so that their world and their offspring's world seemed perfect. And this is crazy that when you think about it, because I've actually had conversations with people who don't know the history of this country, who don't know the history of the world, who don't know much about slavery, who have lived in a cocoon of their and sort of never venture beyond certain boundaries, and they believe that the world is pure, and they believe that their race and their people are perfect, and they believe that when people talk about the atrocities and the oppression and the segregation, they have no clue. And I thought they were being ignorant and false, and I realized as I got to know them that they actually have been so sheltered that they have no clue. And now we have a society that's looking to preserve that shelter, so they'll never have a clue, so they'll never know. Even our own children, people of color, people in the LGBTQI community, women, future women of the world, future people of color, future people of the LGBTQI community will not know how they got there, will not know they existed, will not know the fight, will not know what occurred. The world will look like it's an innocent place where nothing ever happened. And we have no right to scream and crawl and scratch, to be recognized, to be heard, to have a fair chance at not only the American dream, but the dream in this life, to live in a place where we are respected, where we're treated equally, where we're simply allowed to survive and live, where our effort is equal to our reward, irrespective of race, creed, color, gender, sexual orientation. None of that should matter. Every time I say that to you, I remember Martin Luther King, I have a dream that one day black boys and black girls. Every time I I think about it, I realize that, or I feel that something is really wrong. I'm hearing a few more rumbles now. People are beginning to wake up. And I'm concerned that they take so long to wake up that they're gonna wake up when we're at the point of no return. Recently, we had Senator Cory Booker, who spoke for 25 hours. We had the ability to stop bills being passed in the House. Now, understand this, and this may be a little bit all over the place, but my head is so filled with thoughts of so many things that have happened. There was an attempt to pass a bill, and there will be an attempt again, to allow the impeachment of judges. And this all stemmed from a judge going against how do I want to call it? Going against an action of the current president. And I've seen many comments online where people says, how dare he overrule what the president says? Well, and I can't understand how we as human beings have become so hateful and so racist and so willing to wallow in our ignorance and our racism that we have the truth in front of us. I refuse to believe they don't know it, but I believe they've conditioned themselves to believe something different, something new, and they've allowed their brainwashing to retrain their brains. They oppress the thoughts of honesty and reality and truth that we're all born with when we're innocently brought into this world. The bottom line is here, what you're saying when you make a statement like that is one man, any man, Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, who is president, can decide to do something. And the laws that have been established by over the hundreds of years of reframing, retuning, and the work that those who came before us have put in to create these laws should not matter because that person's name is president. So that person is above the law then. Even the people who support this, don't they realize how dangerous that is? Don't they realize that that same person that they're lifting, bolstering to be above the law can turn against them? And then they're going to cry victim and foul. Then they're going to come on the news and want support from those who are already against it. And they'll say, oh, well, I didn't know. Have you listened to these people who campaigned for the current administration and are now on the news saying, I didn't know this was going to happen. I didn't know they were going to do this. They told you what they were going to do. But I think that we are going down to a road to a point of no return if we allow bills to pass that allow the impeachment of judges who are following the law because they make a decision that contradicts that of the President of the United States. Whomever that president is, past, present, future, doesn't matter. This is principle. There are levels of courts in the United States. If a judge makes a ruling against the President of the United States, he has options to go to a higher court if he feels that the judge's decision was erroneous, biased, whatever he feels. But to impeach that judge because the judge made a ruling according to his sworn oath, only on the grounds that you have a difference of opinion where his is the legal perspective and yours is your personal political ideology. What a tangled web we weave. I don't know. Do I need to whisper to the Democrats and the rest in this country to wake up? Do people realize that, for instance, the cuts of the Department of Education will actually slaughter the education systems in many of the red states that voted for this administration? Do people realize that DEI is not a black policy, that it affects white men, white women, handicapped? It affects anybody, race, creed, and color because it is not black diversity. It is not black inclusion. It is inclusion and diversity for those who society assumes differ from what they conceive to be the norm. It just so happens that black people come from slavery and have fought their way up for freedoms and rights. And along the way, women have joined and LGBTQ have joined. And here we are where we have made this much progress. And in less than 100 days it's being erased and no one is waking up. I saw more outrage and more resistance, more voices being, and I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about more people standing up for what is right. I saw more of that with Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. I saw more of that with George Floyd. Here we are sitting silently, a few of us beckoning, screaming as loud as we can, trying to wake up the thunderous silence that there is out there, and how quickly executive order after executive order after executive order is erasing who we are until we look in the mirror and there'll be no reflection because we will no longer exist as we should. We'll no longer exist as our reflection should show. We have situations where there are laws that allow Border Patrol, for instance, to look at your phone if they deem. Usually, it's those abilities, those powers are used when there's a suspicion of something. But there's story after story after story on social media of people getting questioned and their phones getting searched. And the thing about it is, there are lawyers online telling you what to do, but those lawyers don't feel your pain. No matter who you are, alien, resident alien, citizen, they have the right to, when you come in this country, to go through your phone. Apparently that right, this law does exist. And if you don't give them your password or open your phone, you don't have to. But then they have the right to seize your phone. I think it's for 30 days. Now, we know most of us are connected to our phones. So imagine having that seized or taken away, because you're not gonna win this, right? If they seize your phone for 30 days, they're gonna hook it up to a machine, they're gonna download all the data and then give it back to you. The problem with that is we're losing our right to privacy. We're losing our right to have opinions that differ from one or another political ideology without ramifications. America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, is changing. Our military is slowly wiping out any kind of inclusivity. Just recently, I heard today, I was driving, I think I heard the Navy was told to purge their library and remove any literature that referenced DI. I believe I heard at Arlington Cemetery, they've removed any reference to women of color, men of color, even I think Colin Powell. Who's left? I want you to stop and think about this for a second. We have people of color, which includes men and women. We have LGBT community, and we have Caucasian. If I tell you to purge any reference to women of color, men of color, LGBTQ, then the only thing the world and any future generations see when they go to a place like Arlington, where so many people of color lost their lives protecting this country, the Black Airmen, there's so many soldiers, you get the impression that there's only one race that makes up everything in the country. So when you turn around, you see people of color, you see people in the LGBT community, you see women, they become aliens again. They're where they don't belong. And what's crazy is, I was watching a video not too long ago, and they were talking about immigration. And the fact that in the beginning of this country, the Indians who had rightful ownership let white people, and I don't mean that in a prejudiced way, I'm just saying that's history, into this country and show them compassion. Let me back up and start again. So that, because everyone knows me that I'm very colorblind. I try to speak principle and truth, and sometimes obviously that ties to a race or an ethnicity or a gender. The Indians who first were inhabitants of this country let immigrants in. Those immigrants happened to be Caucasian, European. Show them compassion. Fast forward to 2025. And descendants of that race who once landed here as immigrants and were shown compassion are now telling other immigrants, get out, don't come in. If you've been here and you've lived your life and you've lived a model life, still get out. Okay? I mean, it is unbelievable how time allows us to forget that at one point in our lives, to be where we are today, someone had mercy upon us. And here we are inflicting pain on human beings so that we can become supremely wealthy, supremely powerful, and back to a supreme race. This is what's happening. This is the reality of people like me and many of my listeners. And the beautiful thing about 247 Real Talk Podcast is I've looked at it through many different eyes, and I have supporters of every race, creed, color, gender, sexual orientation, and they all embrace this podcast because I try to make sure that I am kind and truthful to everyone and honest. But I don't know what to do about getting a society that has so much power in the people to wake up. The president won the election by 49.7% to 48.7% to Kamala Harris. Therefore, you have to say that's almost a 50-50 split in the sense of half to half. So where is the half that should be angry? And it's more than half, because the recent defeat of the effort to pass those bills in the House is because several Republicans joined the Democrats. So this is not a Democrat and a Republican. This is rightful human beings against people who are destroying us. We had a judicial election in Wisconsin where $1 million was paid to some people to make the election go one way, and it didn't. There was a defeat there. The election went to the Democrats. And I'm hoping that means that that's the beginning of the seed planted for the judiciary to stand up as a body, blind to race, creed, color, or sexual orientation within, and say, we are a legal body. We are the legislative branch, and we have this right. And we will not allow anyone to taint it, to infiltrate it, and to diminish its power in the system of checks and balances. We have the HHS, Health and Human Services, that's being decimated by the new head of HHS, Mr. Kennedy, who has no background in medicine. And it was heartbreaking to hear today that he fired the director and 2/3 of the staff of the department that manages the victims of 9/11. Do you guys remember that day? I do. I remember I was on the Midtown, the bridge in let me get this right, the bridge in Queens that leads you into the Midtown Tunnel. I was at the top of the bridge. I watched the plane fly into the tower. I watched the explosion, and downtown where World Trade Center is quite away from 34th, 31st, and whatever street that is. And the flames were so huge, it felt like they came almost to the bridge. The bridge shook. There was a bus next to me that shook. I watched this. It was one of the most horrific days. And then when I went into work, I went up to the top floor of my job, and we were trying to look downtown with every binocular, whatever people had, and we watched the second tower just go down. Over 3,000 lives lost. Not to mention the planes that were brought down and everything else. And then the people who went down there with the black, remember the soot on their faces, and worked there for months, clearing through debris, sometimes with their bare hands, trying to find survivors. The stories of hope that permeated our souls when people got these, I don't know if they were hoaxes or just wishful thinking, where people said they got a phone call from someone buried in the rubble saying they're still alive, and people went digging, they never found them. And then those hardworking people from Con Edison, the electrician, the police, the fire, every department, they were breathing in such toxic things they had no clue. And years later, here we are in 2025, and people are still dying from illnesses that are the result of that fateful day. And we cut 2/3 of a department that helps these people with their medical and all the struggles they have because they gave selflessly on that day. We have contracts being terminated by Mr. Musk, only to put his own company as the new contractor. We have a country and a world sitting around and watching this, and it's almost like you go to the movie theater, you don't like horror films, and it's the most powerful horror film you've ever seen, and you sit there in fear, stuck to your chairs, gripping the handles and can't move. That's what Congress is like. That's what the House of Representatives is like. That's what the Senate, that's what the Democrats and those Republicans who see this mess and are willing to actually put their jobs on the lines to stand up for what's right and stand with the Democrats. And I applaud those who did that this week. Look, we have a system of fairness. It should remain that way. Our survival should not be based on a personal vendetta of a border agent or a president or a Republican Party. I remember watching, I forgot the name of the congressman. I'm not sure if he was a senator. I believe he might have been a senator, where this guy followed him to an elevator and said he was one of the people who were fired, who was laid off or fired because of the cuts. And then that senator ever turned to him and said, "You should have been. You look like," he said, "you look stupid, or you look like someone who should," something like that, or you're a waste, basically. He didn't even know him. This is the arrogance that these people live with. This is the hatred. This is they're so mighty and powerful. Or at least they think they are. But I'm going to tell you a little story before I end this podcast, this episode. I believe in God the Father, Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and Jesus Christ, the Holy Son of the Lord, who came, died, rose, and made a promise. Many people speculate as to how long this will go on and what it will look like a year, 2 years from now, how much damage will be done. As I sit here and ponder, which is why I started trusting the Lord with all thy might and lead not into thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. We need direction. We need trust. We need faith. Faith that we will survive while all of the world, the environment as we know it, is destroyed around us. I don't know when my Creator will decide to step in. But I promise you that this is no surprise to him. I say it every week. And that God reigns on the just and the unjust, and what is being allowed to happen right now is well noted when the day of judgment comes. Let's look at a world where everybody is a believer. Just for a second. We know that's not true, but let's look at the world for that for a second. And imagine if this is the way it went. You leave this earth, you die, you ascend, and you reach the pearly gates of heaven. And there you are asked by the Almighty, what did you do to deserve entry? What did you do to show kindness, to love thy neighbor as thyself? You can't stammer, you can't stutter, you can't make excuses before the Almighty who has seen all and knows all. It's amazing how politicians will end their speeches with "God bless America," and then turn around and they do everything is against anything that the Bible teaches us, that goodness teaches us. I often tell people, even those who don't believe, that at least if you follow the Bible, it's a book that teaches a way to a good living, a good life. And for those of us who believe, it's much more powerful than that. But also there's a saying that God helps those who help themselves. And I'm calling upon everyone to help ourselves. Unity. We have to make sure that our voices are heard. Because I think that there's enough passion and power amongst us to sway some of the hardest people, even those who oppose the opposite ideology, enough to make sure that none of these bills pass, to make sure that those who oppose righteousness are not reelected to office, judges to stand up, judges on the Supreme Court to choose law and righteousness again over favors and affiliation. It doesn't matter who hired you. And that's the reason that I believe that the Supreme Court still has or runs by it on the basis of you're a judge for life. Because once you're hired, you can't be fired. So it doesn't matter who hired you. It matters how you conduct yourself once hired. It's okay to agree with the person who hired you. It's also okay to disagree with them based on the rule of law. If we lose the power of law, not only are we now a nation that's strictly run by politicians, but for those who already struggle in an unfair criminal justice system, we have lost all hope in ever getting righteousness to win. I'm pleading with you. Simple things about, go on Google and Google your senator and your congressman. Doesn't matter whether Democrat or Republican. Take the time to write how you feel in the most eloquent and respectful way, and send that email every day if you have to, repeatedly. And if they block you, then create a new email address. Go beyond in a peaceful but powerful manner, and make sure that eventually the numbers grow and it goes louder. Make sure those who are seeking re-election understand that don't come to us before elections and tell us how much you're going to fight for us. And this goes for Democrats too. I urge Democrats in every state who are looking to be reelected, and those who are looking for first time in office, to start campaigning if you're a new Democrat, a righteous, honest Democrat, because people who vote for both Democrats, let me rephrase that. I want Republicans as well. I want all people who are interested in righteous politics and who are willing to join that career to do it from now. Don't let anyone of any party, Democrat or Republican, feel that they can get reelected unopposed. Create an opposition, create choices, both Democratic and Republican choices, so that Republicans and Democrats, when they vote for their party candidates, have new choices, and not the same people are in there who have sold their souls or who simply have gone to sleep and will only wake up when it's time for them to be reelected. The time to stand is now. If not, we are a nation reeling out of control. So fast, so furious, that soon, if we don't stand up now, we'll be at a point of no return. Have a great weekend, a great week ahead. Until the next time, please take care of yourselves and each other.
Thank you.